Very important meeting here. We know that a lot of issues really come to the fore, especially in this time where you look at the geopolitical environment. But really, someone who's really well versed with this. We're joined by Ambassador Mabongo. So once again, Ambassador, we're looking at a lot of issues being addressed, especially because we know that with the G20 Sherpas, it's a clearinghouse. It's about addressing those issues so that come November, the agenda is rich and fertile for the G20 members. Let's look at the significance behind this particular gathering.
Thank you very much. This is the third meeting of the Sherpas of the G20 under the South African presidency. It is very significant because firstly, it happens at the midway mark of our presidency. Our presidency will end in November. We had a calendar of 132 meetings, official meetings, to be held under our presidency. So far, we've held over 60 of those meetings. As you can see, they are being held in all our provinces, in different parts of our country. So therefore, it's an opportunity for us to take stock of where the South African presidency is. We have to go back to the priorities that were set at the beginning and all the ambitions that we had and still on course. And of course, the G20 is a collective grouping. So we're doing this as the president. We have to work with all the other members of the G20 to see how can we achieve under the South African presidency an ambitious outcome in November. And the way that the agenda for this week has been structured is such that it touches on all the issues. We will have an opportunity here as Sherpas to talk about the development agenda, to look at the state of the world and see what are the challenges that we are facing in the road to achieving the 2030 agenda and the sustainable development goals. But we will also have to look at, because one of the biggest enablers of progress in the world will obviously be the reform of international institutions. Most of these institutions were created 8 years ago. Some of them have not yet been reformed up to today. So we have to look into issues of the reform of global governance. Importantly, the United Nations itself was created 8 years ago. So in 2025, we are also celebrating the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. So this is the type of conversation that we are going to have. And I think the last point I would make, I think which you referred to, the context in which our presidency is taking place is different from previous years. The world has become more complex. Geopolitical issues tend to interfere with the agenda of the G20. So we've got to take the bull by the horn as the presidency of the G20 in 2025, work with the other member states, members of the G20, to see how do we manage geopolitics, to make sure that geopolitics do not interfere or hinder a progressive agenda from the G20.
And I would imagine, Ambassador, a very critical question is, we've seen the Sherpa, Zane Dango, going to the U.S., interacting with the UN General Assembly, but also going to Washington, D.C. And I suppose it's a third meeting now. Will the U.S. be part and parcel of these proceedings?
For this week, the United States has confirmed to us that they will not be present in the meeting, but they have not foreclosed the possibility of continuing beyond this meeting this week. So we are open-minded about it. We are looking forward to further interactions with them. So we do interact with the United States indeed, because they do have a Sherpa for the G20. They have a sous Sherpa for the G20. So in a way, they are aware of what is happening under our presidency. But most importantly, we should remember that in 2026, it is the turn of the United States to take over the presidency of the G20. So we look forward as South Africa, we are open, we are ready to work with the United States, we are ready to work with them in a transition to their own presidency. But at the moment, we have to also wait for their processes internally and see how they want to approach the process between now and November. Because in November, as President Ramaphosa said when he was in Washington, he wants to hand over the baton, so to say, to the President of the United States in Nasrec, in Johannesburg. So that is basically where we are with regard to the participation of the United States.
And obviously, Ambassador, we know that South Africa, when you look at the key priorities around equality, sustainability, and many other priorities as well, there has been an overwhelming support. So far, what are the member states within the bloc saying about these priorities, especially now because you look at what's happening in the Middle East? I mean, the ceasefire that is fairly fragile, and we know that South Africa has been very clear in terms of de-escalation of the situation, but many other issues, even in the African continent, especially given the very ramifications of conflicts.
So when we sat down and decided what was going to be the overarching theme of our presidency, and we ended up with the theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. We recognized right from the onset that this theme actually resonates with what is happening in the world, because a number of the issues that are facing, challenges that are facing the world today, whether it is climate change, poverty, persisting inequalities between and within countries, loss of biodiversity, the conflicts that are happening in the world, in various parts of the world, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Europe. None of these issues can be resolved by a country working on its own, no matter how big that country is. So therefore, that's why our theme has been so popular around the world. It is supported within the G20 by members of the G20, but it is also supported by countries that are not members of the G20 in the UN General Assembly. It is also supported by global civil society, because everybody recognizes that it speaks to the way of resolving the challenges that are facing the world. So I'm happy to say that our agenda that we introduced in December, we remember we took over on 1 December 2024. I'm happy to report now that at the midway point, our agenda is indeed supported by almost all the G20 countries. Of course, this is also a multilateral process, so there will always be issues where there are divisions here and there, but overall there is a full support for our priorities that were set in December 2024.
All right, Ambassador, thank you so much indeed. Of course, it's going to be quite a very productive 3 days here in Sun City, one of the very premium places here in South Africa. When you talk about showcasing the beauty of South Africa, this is one of the most ultimate places really to showcase the beauty of South Africa, really making sure that the G20 is really showcased across the length and breadth of South Africa. Khalihle Khumalo, SABC News, Sun City, Northwest.